The baby's screams sliced through the restaurant so sharply that every customer stopped eating. Chopsticks froze midair. Spoons hovered above bowls. Conversations died instantly. And in the center of it all stood Jae-hwan Ryu, cold, unreadable, terrifying to most people in Coral Gate City, holding a wailing 6-month-old baby who refused to stop crying. His daughter, Hannah. His arm was stiff, his jaw tight, and his expression tense in a way no one had ever seen before. His men, positioned along the restaurant walls like silent statues, exchanged helpless glances. They looked more terrified of the baby crying than of any rival gang. "Boss, maybe she's hungry?" one of them whispered. "She just ate," Jae-hwan said flatly. "Maybe she's sleepy?" "If she were sleepy, she'd be sleeping." "Maybe." "Stop guessing." The men went quiet instantly. Hannah screamed louder, her tiny fists flailing as if she refused to let the world ignore her pain. Customers slowly began backing toward the exit, unsure whether they should evacuate or pretend everything was normal. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone knew not to interfere. No one dared to approach him. Except for one person. Michelle Blake hurried out of the kitchen, balancing 2 trays of steaming bowls as she tried to navigate around the chaos. She hadn't seen who caused the commotion. She only heard the crying, a sharp, desperate sound that punched through her chest. But when she stepped fully into the dining hall and saw him, her steps faltered. Her heart dropped. Jae-hwan Ryu, the shadow that ruled Coral Gate City. A man people described as danger wrapped in the elegance of a black suit. And in his arms, a baby who was clearly losing her tiny mind. Michelle swallowed, unsure whether to turn back or keep moving. But the baby's cries twisted at her heart like a physical ache. She set the trays down and slowly approached. One of Jae-hwan's men stepped forward immediately. "Step it. Don't get too close to." "Move," Jae-hwan ordered without looking at him. The guard froze, then stepped aside. Michelle cleared her throat gently. "Sir, may I try?" Jae-hwan finally looked at her, really looked at her, and for a second her breath hitched. His eyes were dark, intense, and sharp enough to slice someone open. But behind all that steel, she saw something else. He was desperate, completely out of his depth. And it almost made him human. He studied her face, her uniform, her trembling hands, and then glanced at Hannah, whose screams seemed to shake the entire building. "Do you know anything about babies?" he asked. Michelle nodded. "I study child development in college." "Convenient," he murmured. Hannah screamed again, and Michelle instinctively stepped closer. "May I hold her?" Jae-hwan hesitated, just half a second, but that hesitation was enough to reveal something he would never admit. He didn't trust people with his daughter. But he handed her over anyway. The moment Hannah entered Michelle's arms, the baby's tiny fists slowed. Her cries softened to hiccups. Within 10 seconds, the screaming stopped entirely. The entire restaurant exhaled as if they had been underwater. Michelle shifted her gently, rocking her in a soft rhythmic pattern, humming something light, warm, familiar. Hannah blinked up at her, still sniffling, but calmer than she had been all evening. Jae-hwan stared at Michelle as if she had performed an impossible miracle. His famous composure cracked for the briefest moment. "What did you do?" he asked quietly. "Nothing special," Michelle said softly. "She's overstimulated. She just needed grounding." "Grounding," he repeated. "Babies cry when the world feels too loud or too big. You just have to make it small and warm again." Hannah's hand reached up and curled around Michelle's finger. Jae-hwan's eyes followed the motion, slowly, intently. "Are you always this good with children?" he asked. Michelle shrugged shyly. "I grew up taking care of my baby cousins. And I study this stuff. That helps." His men exchanged glances. One of them whispered, "Boss, this girl is magic." Jae-hwan ignored him. A customer finally dared to whisper, "Who is she?" The question wasn't meant to reach Michelle, but she heard it. And part of her wondered too. Because right now, she wasn't just a waitress. Not to him. Not to this moment. Hannah made a soft cooing sound as she burrowed her face into Michelle's shoulder. Michelle smiled gently and rubbed her back. "She likes you," Jae-hwan said quietly, like it was a fact that surprised him. Michelle glanced at him. Babies know safe people. They feel your energy. And mine? He asked. Michelle hesitated, then answered honestly. You're tense. She feels that too. For the first time since he entered, something like embarrassment flickered across his face. Michelle caught it. Jae-hwan looked away. You handle her better than any nanny I've hired, he said. Holding her isn't hard, Michelle replied. She's not complicated, she's just upset. You say that as if it's easy. For me it is. Her honesty surprised him again. Most people in the city lied, kissed up, and flattered him. But this girl? This waiter in a simple uniform and tired eyes? She spoke to him like he was just a man with a crying baby. He looked at Hannah again. Peaceful. Quiet. Then he looked back at Michelle. What's your name? He asked. Michelle. Michelle, he repeated, testing the sound. Come with me. She froze. What? There's something you need to see. His voice lowered. And something I need from you. Before she could respond, her manager rushed over, panic in his eyes. Sir, whatever she did, please don't hurt her. She's one of my best workers. Hurt her? Jae-hwan repeated. Why would I hurt her? She touched your child. She calmed my child. Everyone went silent again. Jae-hwan stepped closer. Close enough that Michelle could feel the heat of his presence, the intensity of his gaze. Your shift ends in 15 minutes, he said. I'll wait. Wait for what? She asked softly. For you. Her breath caught. I need you, he said simply. My daughter needs you. Michelle stared at him, her heart pounding as Hannah's tiny fingers clung tightly to her uniform. She had no idea that this single moment, this single choice, was about to pull her into a world of danger, love, and secrets she never could have imagined. A world ruled by Jae-hwan Ryu. A world she wouldn't escape unchanged. Michelle's shift ended with her still holding Hannah, who had fallen asleep against her chest as if she had never screamed in the first place. When she stepped outside the restaurant, a sleek black car waited at the curb, its engine humming quietly. Two men stood by the doors, sharp suits, blank expressions, alert eyes. They weren't just bodyguards. They were soldiers. Jae-hwan stood beside the car, his posture straight, his gaze fixed on her like a problem he was determined to solve. He opened the door for her. Michelle blinked. I can't just leave. I have class tomorrow. My bus. You won't miss class, he said. This won't take long. What is this? She whispered. A conversation. His voice softened, but only barely. And an offer. Her stomach tightened. People didn't get offers from men like him. They got warnings. That's commands. But Hannah shifted in her sleep, and when Michelle looked down at the peaceful baby, something softened inside her. This wasn't about danger. Not right now. This was about a child who didn't ask to be born into shadows. Michelle exhaled slowly and stepped into the car. Inside, the world felt suddenly smaller, quiet, dark, padded by leather and soft lighting. Jae-hwan slid in beside her, not too close, but close enough that she felt the heat of his presence. The car pulled off smoothly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he said, You're good with her. Michelle stroked Hannah's hair gently. Babies just need connection. You can't force them to calm down. You have to meet them where they are. And you did, he said quietly. Instantly. It's not a miracle, she murmured. To me it is. She looked up sharply. The sincerity in his voice startled her. This man who commanded a city spoke with genuine vulnerability now. Not weakness, never that, but honesty. Michelle, he said, how old are you? 22. You go to school? Yes. I'm studying early childhood development. And you work nights? Someone has to help my mom with bills. She hesitated. Someone has to be responsible. He studied her with a look she didn't understand. Admiration? Confusion? Something else? Finally, he said, I want to hire you. Her heart stopped. Hire me? For what? To take care of my daughter. Her grip tightened on Hannah. Like, a babysitter? No, he said. A caretaker. A constant presence. A nanny, she clarified. A guardian, he corrected. Her breath caught. I have tried everything, he continued. Nannies with years of experience. Nurses. Specialists. None of them could handle her. None of them could calm her. His voice dropped low. None of them could protect her. Michelle frowned. Protect? Protect her from what? He didn't answer immediately. The car windows darkened as they drove deeper into the private side of the city, quieter, emptier, more controlled. Shadows clung to the street corners like sentries. Michelle felt the unease settling in. Jae-hwan, she whispered. What kind of danger is your daughter in? He turned to her, eyes dark and honest. The kind, he said, that comes for me first, but will take her if they can't reach me. She swallowed hard. Why would anyone target a baby? Because she's mine. His answer was simple. Terrifying. Michelle held Hannah closer. You're asking me to put myself in danger, she said. I'm asking you to help my child live, he corrected calmly. The car slowed, pulling up to enormous black gates. They parted silently, opening into a private road lined with tall trees and armed guards who bowed their heads as the car passed. Michelle stared in stunned silence. This is your home? She asked. My estate, he said. And Hannah's fortress. The word fortress chilled her. When the car stopped at the entrance, a woman in her 50s came rushing out, sharp bun, gray suit, strict posture. She bowed. Boss? She said. Then she saw Michelle holding the baby, and her eyebrows shot upward. Is everything all right? This is Michelle, he said. She'll be caring for Hannah. The woman's shock deepened. So suddenly? She's the only one Hannah responds to. Michelle felt every pair of eyes in the estate watching her. Guards. The people whose lives revolved around this man. She was an outsider. A civilian. A girl in cheap sneakers and a slightly stained waitress uniform, standing inside a world built on fear, money, and silence. Come, Jae-hwan said. I want you to see her nursery. Michelle followed him through the massive house, hallways lined with marble, floors that reflected the lights above, silence so complete it felt heavy. No warmth. No laughter. No signs of a baby living here. Just elegance and control. He opened a door at the end of the corridor. The nursery was immaculate. Sterile. Organized with the precision of a military base. The toys were untouched. Books lined shelves without a single page bent. A mobile rotated slowly above the crib, producing a faint mechanical chime. Beautiful, Michelle whispered. Then she added softly, but cold. Jae-hwan stiffened. Cold. She needs softness. Comfort. Movement. Babies don't thrive in perfection. They thrive in warmth. You're telling me my nursery is wrong? Yes, she said simply. His eyes flashed. Offense, maybe? But then he looked around the room and seemed to see it for the first time through her eyes. Show me, he said. What? Show me what she needs. She hesitated. You're the boss. You're used to control. I'm trying to learn, he said quietly. For her. Something in her chest softened. Michelle shifted Hannah in her arms and walked around the room. She touched the crib lightly, examined the lighting, and felt the temperature. It's too quiet, she said. Babies need sound, not noise. Sound. You've given her a museum. He looked at her with a strange expression. Respect. Curiosity. Something deeper. What about this? He asked, pointing at the mobile. It's pretty, she said, but it's not comforting. Babies respond to human voices. Gentle rhythms. Things that feel alive. He stepped closer, just a foot behind her, but close enough that she felt the weight of his presence. What else? He asked. Michelle took a slow breath. You. His brows lifted. Me. She needs to feel your heartbeat. Your warmth. Your scent. She needs to know you're safe. She turned to him. Babies don't cry for attention. They cry because their world feels wrong. And I make hers wrong? He asked. No, she said softly. You just don't know how to make it right. He looked at her like she had peeled away every layer he hid behind. Every mask. Every defense. She felt exposed too, because speaking to a man like him so honestly was a risk she hadn't meant to take. Hannah let out a soft sigh in her sleep, nuzzling into Michelle's shoulder again. Jae-hwan stared at her for a long moment. "Stay," he said. "I'll pay you 10 times what the restaurant pays." Michelle blinked. 10 times? 20 if necessary. She swallowed. The money could change her life. Her mom's life. She could pay tuition. Pay bills. Buy time. Buy safety. But at what cost? "Michelle," he said quietly, stepping closer, "I can't do this alone." Her breath trembled. And her answer trembled with it. He was asking for more than help. He was asking for trust. And stepping into his world meant stepping into danger. But she looked down at Hannah, peaceful and warm in her arms. And Michelle already knew what she was going to say. Michelle finally nodded, her decision made. "I'll do it," she said softly, though her heart pounded like a drum in her chest. "But on my terms. My family's safety comes first. And I keep my autonomy." Jae-hwan's dark eyes studied her, searching for hesitation. He found none. Instead, he saw determination. Strength. And something he hadn't expected to find in someone so small, so human, courage. "Autonomy," he repeated, almost like testing the word. "You'll have it. As long as Hannah is safe." Michelle set the baby gently into the crib, careful not to wake her. She ran her fingers over the soft blanket, smoothing it, arranging it just so. Every motion was deliberate, like a ritual to assert some control over the chaos she was about to step into. Jae-hwan watched quietly, hands clasped behind his back. For the first time, he didn't command. He observed. Silent. Still. Vulnerable in a way no one else ever saw. "You'll need a schedule," Michelle said finally. "Meal times, nap times, play, stimulation, and some unstructured time. Babies need consistency, but they also need freedom to explore safely." He nodded once, stiffly. "I can do schedules." "I'll teach you how," she said. Her tone left no room for argument. "You'll have to be involved. You can't leave everything to me." "I'm learning," he said quietly. For a moment, neither spoke. Only Hannah's gentle breathing filled the room. Michelle felt a flicker of emotion she rarely let herself indulge in, hope. Not for herself, but for this baby. For the first time in a long while, she believed someone else could carry some of the weight. And for Jae-hwan, who controlled everything yet seemed powerless with Hannah, she felt a pang of something else. Compassion. Perhaps even the faintest hint of respect. Days passed. Michelle settled into the estate, navigating the hallways, the silent guards, and the unspoken rules. She cooked, cleaned, studied Hannah's cues, and introduced gentle routines. She hummed to the baby, played soft music, and talked to her as if she understood every word. Hannah thrived under her care, smiling for the first time in the cold, controlled nursery. Jae-hwan observed her every move. At first, he was skeptical of her methods. Too soft, too human. He preferred efficiency, schedules, and science. But he couldn't argue with the results. Hannah's smiles, her laughter, her calmness, they all proved Michelle right. "Boss, she's smiling," one of the guards whispered one morning, peeking into the nursery. Jae-hwan didn't answer immediately. He watched from the doorway, standing stiffly as Michelle lifted Hannah high, then gently lowered her again. The baby's giggle rang out, pure and clear, and Jae-hwan felt a tug in his chest he couldn't name. Michelle caught his gaze and smiled faintly. "She likes you watching," she said softly. "She feels safe when you're here." He stiffened. "I see." She smiled at Hannah again and whispered, "See? Just a little warmth and attention. That's all she needed." Jae-hwan turned and left the room, leaving Michelle alone with the baby. But he couldn't stop thinking about what she said. Warmth and attention. He had always controlled with fear, wealth, and intimidation. But none of it had ever made anyone feel safe, least of all his daughter. The first real test came sooner than Michelle expected. One night, Hannah's cries woke the entire estate. Michelle rushed into the nursery, finding the baby inconsolable. She tried rocking, humming, and soft shushing. Hannah screamed louder than before. Panic crept in. Michelle's hands shook. She had never faced a baby this unsettled, not even in her classes. Jae-hwan entered the room, an alarm flashing in his dark eyes. "What's happening?" he demanded. She's overstimulated," Michelle said between attempts to calm Hannah. "It's not your fault. She's just overwhelmed." Jae-hwan stepped closer, offering his presence, though he remained rigid. "How can I help?" "Just stay calm," Michelle said firmly. "If you tense up, she will feel it." He froze. His whole life had been about control and power, but here he had to restrain himself. Breathe. Let someone else lead. Let someone else protect what mattered most. Slowly, gently, Michelle took Hannah from the crib and moved toward him. She placed the baby in his arms carefully. Hannah whimpered but didn't scream. Michelle hummed softly, guiding Jae-hwan's movements. "Hold her close. Rock gently. Feel her rhythm. She will respond to you." Jae-hwan's hands were stiff, awkward. He frowned at himself. But Hannah's tiny fingers curled around his shirt. She rested her head against his chest. Michelle's eyes met his, steady, instructive, encouraging. Slowly, he found a rhythm, his strong arms moving gently for the first time in his life. Hannah's cries faded, replaced by soft coos. Michelle let out a relieved breath. "See? You're doing it." Jae-hwan looked down at his daughter, surprised by the calm that filled him. It wasn't just Hannah's. It was his. This fragile, human moment, guided by Michelle, shook him deeper than any gunfight or business negotiation ever could. You're amazing," he said quietly, almost to himself. Michelle smiled faintly. "No. You're amazing for doing it." He stared at her, a long, intense moment passing between them. Something unspoken. Something powerful. Respect, maybe trust. Or something deeper, building silently like a storm behind calm waters. Weeks passed. Michelle's presence transformed the nursery. She brought in soft blankets, colorful toys, and gentle routines that made Hannah laugh and reach for the world with curiosity. Jae-hwan watched from a distance, still rigid, still cautious, but gradually participating in small ways. He'd sit beside the crib while Michelle read softly, attempt to feed Hannah, or simply be there while Michelle hummed, letting the baby nestle against him. A subtle tension grew between them, not just romantic, but a collision of worlds. Michelle's warmth, empathy, and independence challenged Jae-hwan's dominance, his need for control. Yet he respected her. He trusted her. He needed her. And he hated how much that mattered. One evening, as the sun set over the estate, Jae-hwan found Michelle rocking Hannah in the nursery. The light caught her profile, highlighting the curve of her cheek and the intensity in her eyes as she whispered to the baby. "She's growing so fast," Michelle said softly. "Every day she learns something new. We just have to guide her gently." Jae-hwan leaned against the doorframe, silent, watching. "You're staring," Michelle said, glancing at him without breaking rhythm. "I'm observing," he said stiffly. "Ah," she murmured, "learning?" "Maybe," he admitted. Michelle's smile softened, just slightly. "But you'll need it." He took a step closer. "I've learned something already." Michelle looked up, curious. "And what's that?" "That even someone like me can feel powerless," he said quietly. "And that's terrifying." Michelle's brow furrowed. "Terrifying how?" He hesitated. "Because I never thought I'd depend on anyone. And now I do. I depend on you." Her eyes widened, and Hannah stirred in her arms. Michelle's voice dropped to a whisper. "Jae-hwan, she needs stability. And so do you. But you can't protect her alone. Not even with money or men." He exhaled slowly. "I know that now." Their hands brushed as Michelle shifted Hannah, and neither pulled away. A small spark ignited between them, fragile, hesitant, but undeniable. It was during this fragile calm that the first threat arrived. The phone in Jae-hwan's office rang at midnight. He answered silently, listening as the voice on the other end spoke. It wasn't a demand for money. It wasn't a negotiation. It was a warning. "They know where you are. Your daughter isn't safe." Jaehwan's expression hardened, his composure returning instantly. But something inside him shifted. He turned to Michelle, who had been asleep in the nursery after putting Hannah down. "I need you awake," he said quietly. "They could come tonight." Michelle's eyes snapped open. "Oh, what do you mean?" He hesitated, then said, "The Raven Syndicate. They've been after me for years. Tonight, they may strike here." Her pulse raced, but she refused to show fear. "Then we prepare. Hannah stays safe. We stay calm." He studied her, impressed. "You're not afraid?" Michelle shrugged, though her hands trembled slightly. "I can't be. Not for her." Jaehwan's lips pressed together. He had faced countless dangers in his life, but he had never encountered someone whose courage didn't come from training, money, or weaponry. This courage was instinctive, human, unwavering. And it scared him, because it reminded him how fragile he really was. The first sounds came just past midnight. A low, rhythmic thud echoing through the hallways. Jaehwan's sharp ears caught it immediately. He was up, alert, moving silently through the dark corridors toward the nursery. Michelle was already awake, cradling Hannah in her arms, eyes wide but steady. The heavy, deliberate footsteps grew louder. A crash in the main entrance. Someone was inside. "Stay calm," Jaehwan whispered, moving beside her. "Lock the doors." Michelle's fingers tightened on Hannah. "She'll wake if we panic." Jaehwan nodded, tension coiling in his jaw. "I know." The estate shook as the attackers forced their way in. Glass shattered, alarms blaring. Guards fired weapons, but the chaos was immediate. Michelle hugged Hannah closer, humming a soft rhythm she had used since the first day. It was almost instinct now. The tiny vibrations and gentle swaying worked instantly. Hannah's cries didn't start. She remained still, safe in Michelle's arms. "Follow my instructions," Jaehwan said, his voice low and sharp. "Stay close to me." Michelle didn't hesitate. She shifted Hannah into a secure sling across her chest, making her hands free to move silently, to open doors, to block paths. Her movements were deliberate, calm, methodical. Every instinct honed by years of caring for children in difficult situations. A shadow moved near the nursery door. One of the attackers, clad in black, aimed for the room. Michelle stepped forward instinctively, her body shielding Hannah. "Stay back," she hissed. The man faltered. Something in her posture, her confidence, her calm, made him hesitate. In that brief window, Jaehwan lunged, neutralizing the threat with precision. The intruder fell back, groaning. Michelle didn't move. Hannah remained nestled against her chest, eyes closed, breathing steady. Her calm was unshakable. The attackers hesitated at every turn. Michelle's instinctive leadership anchored the chaos. Jaehwan's chest heaved, adrenaline and panic colliding. He watched Michelle, awe mingled with something more personal, relief, respect, an unspoken gratitude that burned hotter than any fear. He had warriors, guns, strategies, but none of them acted like her. None of them had the calm to save his child without hesitation. "They're here," one of the guards whispered, panic creeping in. "They'll leave," Michelle said firmly. "If we stay calm and move correctly, Hannah will be safe." Jaehwan stared at her, realizing the depth of truth in her words. His entire life had been about controlling outcomes with force. But here, power alone wasn't enough. It was instinct, presence, and emotional intelligence that saved lives tonight. The firefight escalated, but Michelle guided Jaehwan through every movement. She opened hidden exits, moved silently through shadows, and kept Hannah's head covered and safe. Every step was precise. Every gesture calculated yet gentle. At one point, a guard fell injured. Michelle didn't flinch. She moved forward, assessing the situation, stabilizing him, then back to Hannah. The baby had not cried once. Her calm radiated outward, like a ripple in water, controlling chaos with nothing but presence. Jaehwan's admiration deepened, mixed with a new emotion, respect born from recognizing true courage. He had faced enemies, fought rival gangs, survived assassination attempts, but never had he witnessed someone act with pure resolve to protect someone else without weapons or training. It humbled him. The intruders finally realized their advantage was gone. Confusion spread among them. Michelle, moving like a shadow, had effectively redirected the attacker's path, buying precious time. Jae-hwan seized the opportunity, coordinating his remaining guards to neutralize the threat. Within minutes, the estate fell silent again, save for the echo of distant alarms and Michelle's soft humming. Jae-hwan collapsed against the wall, finally exhaling. He began, voice rough. You saved her. You saved Hannah. Michelle held the baby closer, not looking at him. She's safe. That's all that matters. He took a step closer, kneeling slightly to meet her gaze. All my money, all my power, none of it could do what you just did. Michelle's lips pressed into a thin line, holding back words she didn't want to say. You don't have to say that. The baby doesn't care about money. She cares about presence, about feeling safe. That's all. He looked at her, the weight of the night pressing down, the adrenaline fading to raw exhaustion. And in that moment, he understood something fundamental. Michelle was not just Hannah's caretaker. She was the anchor he never knew he needed. In the aftermath, the estate was quiet but tense. Guards checked every corner. Alarms were disabled. Michelle stayed close to Hannah, singing softly, stroking her tiny hands, reassuring her that the danger had passed. Jae-hwan watched, leaning against the doorframe, unsure if he should intervene or simply observe. This woman, this girl, was changing him. He had spent decades building walls of fear, wealth, and dominance. She tore them down without raising a hand. Finally he spoke. Michelle. She looked up, sleepy eyes and all, still humming. Yes. He paused. Words failed him. He had no authority here, no command. Just recognition. You're extraordinary. Michelle smiled faintly, almost embarrassed. I'm just doing what I can. He shook his head, still kneeling near her. No. You're more than that. You're essential. She looked down at Hannah, who stirred slightly but remained calm. She only trusts me because I respect her needs, Michelle said softly. It's not magic. Just care. Jae-hwan absorbed the words, feeling the truth cut deeper than any gunshot or threat ever could. He had tried to control everything in his world. But here, control was irrelevant. Presence mattered. Calm mattered. Humanity mattered. And Michelle had it in abundance. The following days were intense. The attack had left everyone on edge, guards were doubled, and routines were disrupted. But Michelle maintained her calm. She guided Jae-hwan through interacting with Hannah, teaching him patience, showing him that a child's heart could not be commanded, it could only be nurtured. Slowly, Jae-hwan began to understand the balance Michelle had brought to his life. The sterile fortress of his estate softened. Toys appeared. Books were read. Laughter returned. Hannah thrived. Yet, in private moments, Jae-hwan found himself watching Michelle. Not just for Hannah, but for her. How she handled stress, her quiet confidence, the way she moved through the house like she belonged more than anyone else. He didn't understand it, and that frightened him. People didn't scare him easily, but Michelle did, because she had power over the one thing he treasured most, and she wielded it without ever trying. One evening, he found her humming in the nursery, Hannah asleep against her chest, her eyes closed in peace. He stood in the doorway, silently observing, feeling something shift inside him he couldn't name. You've done more for her than I ever could, he said quietly. Michelle opened her eyes slowly. She's always been capable. I just give her the chance to feel safe. And me? He asked, voice low. Do you give me the chance? Michelle looked at him, heart hammering, and for a long moment, they simply stared. Words failed both of them. The tension was electric. Fear, admiration, something more intimate. The unspoken truth between them pulsed louder than any alarm had that night. Jae-hwan swallowed. I want to learn from you. Not just about her, about me. Michelle tilted her head slightly, a faint smile playing on her lips. Then you'll have to listen. And follow instructions. No shortcuts. He chuckled softly, the first genuine sound he'd made in days. I can do that. Good, she said. Because the real lessons are about patience, presence, and trust. You can't buy them. You can only earn them. He nodded, finally understanding. The fortress around his heart had been breached, not by violence or fear, but by calm, courage, and human connection. And Michelle had the key. Weeks passed, and the estate slowly returned to a fragile calm. Hannah laughed, played, and explored under Michelle's careful supervision. She began to recognize Jaewon's presence not as a threat, but as comfort. And Jaewon? He began to realize that life was no longer just about control and power. It was about moments like these, quiet, unguarded, and human. Michelle had grown comfortable in the house, though she maintained her independence. She cooked meals, taught Hannah simple songs, and even began showing Jaewon small ways to interact with her daughter without losing his composure. Their interactions became lessons, gentle sparring matches where patience, humor, and trust replaced commands and fear. One evening, after Hannah had gone to sleep, Michelle found herself alone with Jaewon in the nursery. The dim light from the crib lamp painted warm shadows on their faces. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, studying her. She noticed the tension in his shoulders, the faint tremor of vulnerability in his dark eyes. "You're changing things," he said quietly. "Not just here, inside me." Michelle hesitated. "That's because you let me. You have to want it." He stepped closer, hesitant but deliberate. "I do. I want it." His gaze softened. "Not just for Hannah, but for me. I don't know how to be different. But with you, I feel like I can try." Her heart raced. She hadn't expected this vulnerability from the man who ruled the city with fear. Yet here he was, confessing in quiet tones what no one else could coax from him. "You don't have to be perfect," she whispered. "Just present. Just human." He exhaled, slowly, and for the first time, the armor seemed to slip. He reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. Michelle's breath caught. Their eyes met, and an electric tension filled the space, the kind that had been simmering since the first night she soothed Hannah in the restaurant. Slowly, deliberately, he closed the gap between them. Their lips met in a hesitant, searching kiss. Michelle froze for a heartbeat, then allowed herself to respond. It was not just passion, it was trust, respect, and the unspoken bond forged in chaos, protection, and countless quiet moments. When they pulled back, both were breathless, hearts racing. Hannah stirred in her crib, but Michelle's calm hands immediately soothed her. Jaehwan watched, realizing in that moment that Michelle's power was not in dominance or control, but in presence, care, and love. The very things he had underestimated. The following weeks deepened their connection. Jaehwan began participating in Hannah's routines fully, laughing at her antics, reading her books aloud, and even attempting Michelle's gentle hum, though it sounded awkward at first. Michelle guided him patiently, teaching him that true strength lay not in fear, but in calm, resilience, and emotional presence. The estate transformed too. The once sterile halls began to feel alive. Toys appeared in corners. Books were stacked in cozy reading nooks. Michelle's warmth seeped into the very walls, softening the fortress Jaehwan had built. Guards, once rigid and cold, began to smile quietly at the child's laughter and the strange, powerful bond forming between her caretaker and the feared boss. Then came the final confrontation. One evening, a new threat emerged, a rival syndicate seeking to claim dominance over Coral Gate City. Intelligence warned of an imminent strike aimed at the estate, targeting both Jaehwan and Hannah. But this time, Michelle was ready. As alarms blared, Michelle's calm voice guided everyone. "Stay low. Stay silent. Follow my lead." She moved through the chaos like a shadow, ensuring Hannah's safety with practiced precision. Jaehwan, though tense and armed, followed her instructions without question. He trusted her completely, knowing that her instincts, her calm, and her presence were the real shield protecting what mattered most. The attackers breached the outer perimeter, only to find themselves outmaneuvered. Michelle's quick thinking, combined with Jaehwan's strategic mind, neutralized the threat efficiently. Hannah remained unharmed, secure in Michelle's arms, while the intruders fled in confusion and fear. When the estate fell silent again, Jaehwan finally exhaled, dropping to his knees in front of Michelle. "You," his voice was hoarse. You saved her again. You saved us all. Michelle shook her head, hugging Hannah. I just stayed calm. That's all anyone could do. Jae-hwan looked at her, awe and something deeper shining in his dark eyes. No. It's more than that. You're more than anyone I've ever known. I don't know how to thank you. She smiled faintly, brushing her fingers through his hair. You don't need to. Just keep being present. For her and maybe for yourself. He swallowed hard. I'll try. For both of you. Months later, life in the estate had found a new rhythm. Hannah thrived, Michelle's guidance making her confident, happy, and curious. Jae-hwan had become more than a distant, controlling figure. He was a father present in every sense, learning from Michelle's wisdom and example. Their bond, forged in crisis, respect, and trust, had evolved into a quiet, unshakable intimacy. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the estate in hues of orange and gold, Jae-hwan and Michelle sat together on the nursery floor, Hannah nestled between them. Michelle hummed softly, and Hannah reached for both their hands, giggling. You're both impossible, Jae-hwan said, smiling genuinely, a rare, unguarded expression. And yet, I can't imagine life without you. Michelle looked at him, her heart full. And you'll never have to. We're here now. Together. That's enough. He reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. Together, he echoed. The baby gurgled happily, a sound that seemed to seal the moment. And for once, the fortress of the estate didn't feel cold or sterile. It felt like a home. Alive. Jae-hwan leaned in, kissing Michelle softly, this time without hesitation. It was a kiss that held gratitude, love, and the acknowledgement of the bond that had saved all three of them. Hannah reached up to touch their faces, giggling at the strange closeness, and Michelle laughed softly, hugging her daughter. The future was uncertain. Danger might return. The city might challenge them again. But for now, they had each other. Trust, love, and presence, stronger than any weapon, more unshakable than any fortress. And as the camera pans away from the estate, the glow of warm lights spilling into the night, the story leaves a clear message. Power is not in domination or fear. True strength lies in connection, courage, and calm. And sometimes, the smallest presence, a girl with a soft hum and a steady heart, can change the world of the most feared man alive. If you loved this story of trust, courage, and unexpected love, don't forget to subscribe for more gripping Afro-Korean romance tales. Drop a comment sharing which character inspired you the most, and like this video if you want more thrilling, heartwarming stories. Your support helps bring more stories like this to life.